Good morning, class. Today we're going to do a little short exercise over measuring with a ruler and protractor, just to make sure everybody can use those tools. The first thing you probably need to do is go ahead and go to your Lumen Touch website and open up the Smart Notebook lesson over measurements. So once you get that done, and remember, if you're not quite there, feel free to pause this video and restart it when you get there. We're going to be talking about using the ruler first. If your ruler should appear on your page, if it's not, click on the compass, click on the ruler, and this will appear. Now to use your ruler, notice that on the top side of the ruler is the centimeters, where the longer ones that are on the bottom are your inches. And of course you can always rotate this if you need to have your inches on top and your centimeters on bottom. Probably not necessary though. So the first thing we're going to learn to do is we're going to talk about measuring in inches. So as you look at this ruler, if you count the number of tick marks across from the 0 to 1, if you count every single tick mark, when you get to 1, you'll have counted 16. That means that each tick mark measures 1/16 of an inch. So that's as precise as we're going to get down as to the nearest 16th. So if we're going to measure this first segment here, I want to place the 0 right at this endpoint to the left of that segment. So feel free to follow along on your lesson. Alright, so notice the 0 is right there with the endpoint on the left. Now as I look across here, I just want to get what this segment length is closest to. So it looks like it's going to be closest to this tick mark on the ruler right there. So I need to count across and figure out how much past 2 that is. Notice that it's going to be 2 full inches, and then I'm going to write it as something over 16 after I count these tick marks. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I'll write 11 over 16. If that would reduce, say it was 10/16, then you would want to reduce that on down to 5/8. Okay? But 11/16 won't reduce, so this is how long that segment is, and to mark inches, we mark it with just 2 little tick marks right above it, kind of like an exponent up there. Alright, so that's how we want to mark the length of it. Now centimeters is actually a little bit easier to use. Centimeters, if you count the tick marks on the top side now in between 0 and 1, when you get over to 1, you'll count 10 of them. So that means that each one of these tick marks measures 1/10 of a centimeter. Well, 1/10 is very easy because if you remember your decimal places, that's one spot to the right of the decimal. So centimeters are actually easier to measure in and probably a little bit more precise because notice the tick marks are a little closer together. So right here again, I'm going to line up the 0 with the very end point of that segment that I'm measuring, and I look across here and it looks like it's in between the 6 and the 7, so I know that I'm going to have 6 point, and then all I have to do is count the tick marks after the 6, and I'll have this measured in centimeters. So I'm going to count real quick. It's going to be, here's your 6, so it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I'm going to say 9. So we're going to say 6.9 centimeters would be the length of that segment. Now on the next page, there's 3 more of these. I want you to go ahead and break out the ruler And I want these measured in both centimeters and inches. So why don't you pause the video and go ahead and do that at this time. Alright, now we're going to learn to use the protractor. I've had several students come in and say they couldn't figure out how to use their protractor already this year, and we just began. So what we want to do, if you haven't got the protractor on your screen, go ahead and hit the compass protractor button and go down to the protractor and click on it and it will appear. The first thing is right in the middle, you see a little 90-degree intersection right in the middle of your protractor. You want to put right where the X is right now, you're going to drag that down and you're going to put it at the vertex of your angle. That's where the two rays intersect at. So you're going to put that right in the middle where that intersection is, right in the middle. Now you want to line up that edge that faces to 0. You want to line that up so that that bottom ray faces the 0. Well, if this is marking the 0, then as we go up, it would be the inside numbers that we use. So we would look at the 10 if there was an angle coming straight through here. It wouldn't be 170, and plus you probably know what an acute and obtuse angle, so you'd realize that being acute, you would use the inside. Well, notice that our angle stretches all the way over here. So we're going to have to look at the outside numbers to measure our angle. I'm sorry, we're still going to look at the inside numbers to measure our angle, but we're going to have to come all the way over here where the 130's at. Okay? So we're going to follow those inside numbers all the way over, and it's going to be past 130. So it's going to be probably a little bit over it, and your smart software can actually get really precise if you can learn to play around and use it. It looked like it was 132 there before it disappeared. So about 132 for that angle. So we want to make sure that we mark degrees, so I'd mark 132 degrees on that. Okay. Now sometimes, especially if you're doing it by hand, you'll get to an angle that it would be very hard to measure with your protractor because it's so short. Well, in the smart software, it's actually pretty easy to measure an angle like this because you can adjust it two ways. You can either shrink down your protractor there. Oh. That gives me the full one. To shrink it down, tilting it, there. Right in the middle, you can shrink it down to either fit that size or you can blow it back up. So, but another way in the smart software, and if you had a pencil and pen, if you click on the ray, you can actually increase that ray by dragging it straight out. So now it's going to be easier to measure. So let's shrink our protractor down. Now notice that our angle is crooked. We're still going to line up the X right in the middle with our protractor. But now we've got to turn this so that the 0 lines up with our initial side of the angle. So we should have one side still facing at the 0, and now all we have to do is measure to the other angle. Notice it's an acute angle. We're still using the insides the way I've set it up here, and it looks like it's going to be right at 65 degrees. So I would write 65 degrees. Now if you click on the next page, it's your turn again. So I want you to go ahead and use your protractor, measure each one of these angles, save it as a soft notebook, and then upload it to your Lumen Touch site.